This reflects the political orthodoxy that voters are essentially self-seeking. Give them a tax cut and they'll give you their vote, to hell with the deficit. LoadingAnd. There was a time when most voters did behave accordingly. But that's ancient history. It changed decades ago. The pollsters asked a representative sample of 1,200 voters, given the choice, would you prefer that the government used extra revenue to provide income tax cuts or to pay off government debt? 57% preferred that the government pay off debt. 37% went for the tax cut. Interestingly, it's the coalition's own voters who feel strongest about this. 68% prefer a smaller national debt than a tax cut. But a majority of Labour voters, 52%, and a plurality of Greens voters, 49%, feel the same way. This broad reaction is as Ian McAllister predicted well before the budget. It has a name, explains the new political scientist. Sociotropic voting. Sociotropic choices put the greater good of the country ahead of narrow personal self-interest, or egocentric voting. There's a lot of literature on it. It started in the 1980s in Britain when people asked the question, how the hell can Margaret Thatcher win elections when she keeps screwing everyone? Her harsh industrial tactics and austerity policies were polarizing and unpopular. She roiled Britain for a decade. But she kept winning elections because people were prepared to make personal sacrifices if they believed it was for the good of the country. When it came to last week's budget, McAllister predicted in a conversation with me, personal tax cuts will only help the government if the electorate believes that they're good for the country as a whole, but it won't if it's just the government saying I'm going to stuff $20 in your pocket. In the event, Morrison said he'd stuff a maximum of $10 a week in your pocket. And, lacking evidence that this would help economic growth for the country as a whole, he didn't try to make that argument. It was Labour that promised to stuff $20 a week into your pocket. Why do politicians refuse to believe decades of consistent polling and research? They usually say that they don't believe the polling. They say that people just tell pollsters what they think sounds noble. And that, privately, we're all just motivated by base greed. Which is a funny response from a class of people that lives and dies by poll results. Perhaps it tells us more about the politicians than it is about the people. Peter Hartcher is the political editor and international editor of the Sydney Morning Herald. He is a Gold Walkley Award winner, a former foreign correspondent in Tokyo and Washington, and a visiting fellow at the Lowy Institute for International Policy.